Hello viewers, this is Trevor with Ink Warfare. Welcome to video number 2 in this 5-part series where I draw the top 5 mask-wearing characters of all time. Now for number 4, I had a difficult time. I kind of cheated a little bit. I'm actually going to draw 3 drawings because these characters all wore pretty much the same exact mask, and they're very close to being historically just as popular as one another. Well, maybe not. Maybe this first character I'm drawing is a little more popular than the other two, but the other two still have stood the test of time. Maybe some of you younger folks aren't going to know or be familiar with the last character as much, but I'm a child of the 80s, and back then, the second 2 characters I'm going to draw had actually, I think had kind of received a little resurgence in popularity when I was a kid due to some movies that were released and the black and white reruns of the show, especially the last character I'm going to draw, were still on, and I remember watching them. I had the play set with the, give you a hint, the pearl-handled pistols with holsters and belt. And to coincide with a recent release of a movie, in 1980, Gabriel Toy Company released some, I think they're 3 3/4 action figures, and I still have those to this day, and the horses. But the character at hand that I'm drawing, if you haven't figured out yet, was created, according to my research, in 1940, and his alter ego was Dick Grayson. So yep, this character that I'm drawing is the young early version, my version of the early version of Dick Grayson as Robin. And the Robin mask, no matter how simple it is super recognizable, and you can't deny the popularity of just this black, almost bandana with a couple eye holes punched in it. So that's you may think, well, that's kind of a lame choice as my number 4, but like I said, you cannot deny the popularity of the Robin character and the longevity of Robin, and the other 2 characters that share the same spot. I think you'd have to say the same thing about them. It'd be pretty difficult to argue against that. So I mean, Robin is a super recognizable character, popular, experienced several incarnations, and that's why I chose the Robin mask for my number 4. Now, I like on my other video, I started out drawing with a blue Color Ace pencil, and here I'm using my my Tombow Fudeno Sinky pen. I'm drawing on deleter paper again. I'm going straight from the blue pencils to inks, so I'm creating the details as I go. I have an idea in my mind about how I want it to look, how I want his hair to look. I wanted him to look like a younger boy, like a younger teenager, rather than the older teen that's represented in comics often now. Sometimes as Damian or Tim Drake, but because the earliest incarnation of the Robin character started it all off, I kind of wanted to stay somewhat true to that character in my drawing. So he has the basic Robin costume with the collar buttoned up to the top button, with the cape and the lace shirt. And this was a pretty simple one to draw. Let me know what you think. I think think many people would agree with me. You can't, like I said, you can't deny the longevity, the popularity of Robin. There's other characters that I could have chosen for number 4, but like I said, I think Robin has earned his place in pop culture as a very well-known character. I have not drawn Robin that many times, at all. I think one thing about the Robin mask and the mask of the other 2 characters that I picked is that they'd be so easy for the average child to create. Some of these masks you'd have to go to a store and buy them, or make kind of a crummy representation of them and use your imagination. But this mask, if you can find a piece of black cloth and cut 2 eye holes in it, there you go. You can pretend you're Robin all day long. You don't need to paint anything. You don't need to glue anything. You do not need multiple different materials to make your mask. You can go straight into just pretending you're the boy wonder, or the other 2 characters. I don't want to give it away. I don't know. Maybe I should tell you. People probably fast forward the video to see. But whoever ends up watching this video, but I think you can probably guess, if you think about it, what other characters had a mask similar to Robin's. Most people probably would have an easy time coming up with those characters, and I might even have missed some, but these are the 3 that in my mind, the 3 most popular characters that wore this style mask. And it's kind of true about this mask, and so many characters. It's not the overly complicated costume characters that have stood the test of time. It's many times the simple costumes. Batman's costume is not complicated. Superman's costume is not complicated. Spider-Man, a lot of look at the Hulk. He doesn't really. He's a green guy. Doesn't have much of a costume. The Fantastic Four didn't have complicated costumes. You think about some of these characters that have been super popular in pop culture, and they're really not overly complicated, which makes them easy to draw most of the time. Now I decided to draw a little smirk on Robin's face because he's kind of a fun-loving character, loves the action, a little cocky, a little overconfident. I was kind of thinking on this hair, I was kind of going for a kind of a Leo DiCaprio look. I did not reference him, like a photo of him or anything like that. I was just that came to mind when I was trying to visualize how I wanted the hair to look. This was probably the simplest character out of all the characters I drew for this series to draw. Being a younger guy, you don't have to do as much rendering on the face. Trying to keep it simple. He's not going to have that many lines, wrinkles. Pretty smooth face because he's young. Doesn't have to look weathered. So you can end up keeping things simple. I don't know, this one or the last character on this video was probably the simplest for me to draw. Although I did struggle with the last character because I drew him a few times. I'm not opposed to letting showing you warts and all how I create my images. And sometimes I mess up. Sometimes I don't like what I've drawn and I have to scrap it. I usually try to save what I've done in some way, whether if I have to use whiteout or not. But I usually prefer to do that, to try to save a drawing. Some drawings just can't be saved, or it's difficult or not worth your time to save them. Rather, starting over might be easier. I probably could have gone a little darker with his hair in hindsight, but I think you still get the gist of what kind of hairdo he has, and I think in my opinion, I'm happy with it. It looks acceptable. Now with his mask, if you're drawing right, one thing you can do is, this has been done over and over and over. Many artists throughout time have just blacked out Robin's mask. It's just black. There's no highlights. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It looks fine. I just decided to leave some highlights and some reflected light. But I think it would have looked just as fine if I blacked it out, especially if this was going to be colored. That's another thing. The hair would be fine if this is going to be colored, because I imagine the hair would be, if I was coloring it, it'd be mostly like a navy blue with some highlights. Being a younger guy too, you want to leave the neck a little thinner. He's not going to have a big muscular neck. All right, on to the next character. It shares the spot for number 4. This character is a swashbuckler. I don't know how many younger people are going to be familiar with this character. There was a recent comic series. I don't know how popular it was. It was a series done by Sean Gordon Murphy. I think I bought the first issue, but I didn't buy the rest of it, if I recall. And love his artwork. Sometimes I'm not. I think his Batman stuff I really liked from what I bought. But sometimes I'm not too keen on certain characters in some of his more recent stories. I think were just created to please a specific segment of society that tends to be vocal if they're not included. I think that's just been well overdone. So this character was a little tricky getting the hat right. I didn't really have a hat for reference, so I had sketched this out beforehand, like a rough sketch, to kind of figure out how I wanted this hat to. I wanted the hat to pretty much cover one of the eyes, like the right eye, the left eye, or cast it in shadow. And I don't know if you can tell yet who this character is, but if you picture Robin's mask on him, similar mask to Robin's, here it is. I'm penciling it in right now. This character is Zorro. And same thing when I was a kid. I believe there was a Zorro movie that came out. There's been so many Zorro movies. But I don't know how many times I used to pretend that I was Zorro running around the woods and playing with my friends and cousins. Just a super cool character. And then back in the 90s, I believe, you had the Antonio Banderas version of Zorro, and those were entertaining movies. Anthony Hopkins was in there. And so there was a resurgence of popularity in Zorro then too. I don't think there were any like toys or action figures to kind of coincide with that movie that I recall. By that time I was kind of beyond toys and action figures, but I don't recall seeing any that had to do with that movie in particular. I do believe the Gabriel Toy Company came out with a Zorro action figure around 1980 as well, with a horse. I'm not sure if there were any other figures in that line. I think that's the same company that came out with the Indiana Jones figures as well. I did have the Indiana Jones figures, but I never had the Zorro figure. I think I wanted him, but it just never happened. I was fairly young when those came out. But I was an only child, so I did end up with probably more toys than the average kid. Not that we were wealthy or anything growing up, but the wealth didn't have to be spread around as much because there were no siblings. Now, when I was looking this up, the Antonio Banderas version of the character, at least in the first movie, did not have the mustache. But most earlier versions, and I think any comic book or magazine version, did include a representation of Zorro that had the mustache. I don't know about I threw in the little goatee piece or whatever, I don't know what you call it. The little triangle there, because it seemed right. There had to have been a Zorro somewhere along the line that had the little like, that's kind of a Spanish thing, that little triangular beard. It's not a beard piece, but I don't know what you call it. Maybe somebody can enlighten me in the comments. You know, all these three pictures that I'm drawing for this video, they will be for sale on my website, inkwarfare.com. I'm also on Instagram at ink.warfare. So if you wanted to follow me on there, I'd appreciate it. I've been trying to post more reels on Instagram because somebody had told me that to focus more on reels. Somebody younger and wiser in social media than I am. So I'm trying that out. So usually I'll take a segment of one of my videos and post it on there as a reel. But you can find me on Instagram at ink.warfare. I am not currently on any other social media platform other than YouTube, Instagram, and I have my website. One thing that I don't do in any of these videos is I don't autograph the pictures, but they would be autographed at the, when I'm finished with them. And usually when I post them on my website, the image includes the autograph. You might have just heard my dog. He came in here and he's been panting quite a bit. He hasn't been doing too well. So I think he probably was. I'm so used to his breathing, his heavy breathing right now that I didn't even notice it when he came in here. But after he walked out, just thought I'd let you know that was not me. That was my dog. I think the Zorro character took me the longest out of the 3 that I drew for this video to complete. So apparently the character of Zorro was created in 1919 for a group of novels written by Johnston McCulley. And then not too long after that, there were a few movies released. And Zorro, it's kind of interesting. Zorro is part of public domain, but you cannot use the Zorro name. So the Zorro name is copyrighted, but the character himself, I don't know how that works. I guess you can use the imagery, but you cannot use the, say you wanted to publish a Zorro movie, comic book, cartoon, what have you, you'd still have to get some kind of permission or rights from whoever holds the copyright on the actual name. But you could use the original incarnation of the character. I guess you have to be careful though about what the costume looks like. So you couldn't use, you'd have to use the earliest versions of the costumes that were used in the first couple movies, I guess. It's kind of interesting how many characters are going to be moving into the public domain in the next few years. And it's kind of hard to believe, characters that were created in the early 1900s are now part of the public domain. I think, I'm not sure when Superman becomes part of the public domain. I don't think we're that far off. But again, I think you'd only be able to use the earliest version of Superman, like the first symbol. Who knows, might be a similar situation. I don't know, maybe you won't even be able to use his name. That's a big character. It's going to be coming into the public domain for public use. I imagine you'll see a lot of people using some version of Superman once that happens. So I just looked it up. So the original version of Superman from Action Comics will enter the public domain on January 1st, 2034. So getting close. Got a little wait to go. I mean, I guess if you're planning your Superman project, you might want to start it now, depending on how long it's going to take you. Whether this is just a side gig for you, if you're an illustrator or like to draw or have some plans to create a Superman cartoon, animation, comic book. Some of that public domain stuff, I think you got to be pretty careful with, though. Just like what I just said. I mean, you can use the Zorro imagery, but only certain imagery, and you can't use the Zorro name. You don't want to be found in violation of that if you're a struggling artist. You don't want to be paying expensive lawyer fees. So I'd recommend if you were planning something like that, a project like that, do your research. One other thing about Zorro, I guess you wouldn't even be able to use the mark of Zorro. So, Zorro leaves the mark in the ground with a sword, the Z. So you wouldn't be able to use that yet. You'd have to wait. possibly until the first time that was used, but I would think that was used in one of the first movies. Now, it's been a while since I've seen some of the early Zorro movies. When I was a kid, I think they used to be on used to be a channel. I don't think it exists anymore. More Turner Broadcasting. There was a fellow named Ted Turner that was a big television mogul, business mogul, television mogul. So a lot of reruns and stuff were shown, old movies on some of his networks. I think all the Atlanta Braves games were on one of the Turner networks. I was trying to decide in this drawing how far to go with his shirt, how many highlights to leave on it, and it just looked too contrasty, so I just started blocking it in a little bit more. Sometimes just blocking in black is the easiest thing to do and maybe the best thing to do. Because the viewer's eye can add highlights that aren't there, especially if there's just little highlight details. It's pretty interesting what your mind will do to create the rest of the details that really are not present. Now, out of all the drawings that I did for this series, both of my sons liked this one the best. I'm not sure if it was my favorite or not, but when I showed them lined them up and showed them to my kids, they were like, "Oh, that one's really cool." Maybe it doesn't look that way yet, or now, or maybe you disagree. This was one too where I did have to step away and come back to it, and actually I had thought I had finished the video, and after a few days, and I had even drawn one of the other characters or a few other characters, I was looking at it on my desk and I'm like, you know what, I've got to fix this, and I'll let you know when we get to it what I actually fixed. So I don't know, you might notice a different color sweatshirt on like my sleeves at times. That's because, I'll be honest, sometimes I don't draw all these in one sitting. I wish I had time to sit at my drawing table all day and nonstop. I mean, with reasonable breaks and stuff, but I just don't. It's pretty much one of my favorite places to be. Most of the time. Unless I'm really hating a drawing. But even if I hate a drawing, I'll just keep working at it and work at it until I get it right. I don't like to give up on one of my drawings. And usually they are savable. I think, like I said earlier, it might take a little bit of white out. That's also part of the learning process. You learn by making mistakes. I can tell you every wrong way to put up a above ground swimming pool, because I've done it. and I've learned from my mistakes, and I'll never do it the way I did it originally again. I don't know if I'll put in an above ground swimming pool again. But that goes hand in hand with everything. A lot of things are learned just by making mistakes, doing it the wrong way. There are people that just don't learn and they continue to do it the wrong way. So I was just looking it up, those Gabriel Zorro action figures, they came out in 1981. They were to coincide with, I guess, a Filmation animation series. They were really sick figures. Maybe someday I'll pick one up. If you look them up, like the figure looks great. There's also a version of him wearing like a red suit with a red mask. I'm not sure what the correlation is there, but if you're into Zorro, that'd be a really cool action figure to find. Came with I think he came with a, did he come with a whip? Came with a whip and maybe a pistol and a sword. I don't think the arms bent on that figure, but the knees did. So look that up. That's a cool action figure that maybe not a lot of people know of if you're a fan of Zorro. I don't know how I didn't end up with that one when I was a kid. I mean, I was only like about 4 or 5 years old when that came out, but somehow my mom had this was forethinking enough. She started buying me stuff even at that young age. Like, I've got the earliest version of the G.I. Joe comic book, issue number 1, and I think at that time I was even too young to realize it. Not sure what year that came out. So thanks, Mom, if you're watching this. There used to be a company called, a store called Brand Names in our area, and you would go to the store and they'd have some stuff on display. They had a catalog, but you'd pick up a ticket off the counter and they'd have some of the merchandise back behind the counter, and they'd have to call you. I don't know if you filled out a card, I think, with the catalog number, what item you wanted, and then they would call you and bring the item forward. They used to have like just one short rack of like toys. I remember they had the Dungeons and Dragons toys, and never had any of those. They had some cool figures, but I think several of the toys that I've owned came from Brand Names. Used to pore over the catalog, pour over the catalog. When I was a kid, I was big into action figures, not unlike a lot of boys. And the 1980s were a great time for action figures. You had so many great characters and toys that came out. You have the G.I. Joe, Star Wars. Even though Star Wars was released a little bit earlier than that, same thing. I have several of the early Star Wars figures. Pretty much well before I even knew what Star Wars was, my mom was buying them. Got Thundercats, Bravestar. I had the Bravestar characters. I had the Bionic Family. I had the Rambo figures. Cops. Cops was a cool line. One thing I never got into when I was a kid was the DC figures. I don't know why, because I watched the cartoon all the time. Super Friends. Somehow I never had any of those figures. So I was trying to decide what to do with this hat as far as highlights. And I ended up leaving just the one highlight and the top of the hat lighter. And then like a shadow cast across the brim there. And again, I could have just colored it all black. But the light from above, the top of the hat would cast a shadow on the brim. And I also didn't want to go too crazy with the musculature here. Zorro is not a superhero, and he's just at the end of the day just a man. I mean, my version of Zorro in my imagination, he'd have to be, have some musculature to do the things that he would have to do, and fight who he'd have to fight. But also Zorro is a character that's very skilled. Sometimes with skill you can make up for a lack of strength. And I was trying to decide whether to do the scarf around his neck or not. I ended up going with just the open shirt. I think some of the earlier versions of Zorro, he had a scarf around his neck. Now you saw me, I did white out that jawline there. I had an extra line. I started with the jawline a little too high and didn't like it. So, I'm showing you how I draw this stuff, warts and all, instead of just tossing out the drawing and starting over again. Now this band on his hat, I decided to leave that lighter in color. I could have just left a highlight along the top edge and then a highlight to match the highlight on the top of the hat. But color or drawing something like this, ultimately, unless you're releasing it in black and white, if this was going to be published or whatever, it'd most likely be colored. It's not going to be. I have no plans to scan this and bring it into Photoshop and color it. I'm just going to have it posted on my website, inkwarfare.com. If somebody wanted to buy it or look at it further, you're welcome to just get on the website and look at the final product. I should have those up on the website. Like once this series is done, I'll probably put them up there. So it might take a week or two before I get this one up on my website. So apparently Gabriel, the toy company, did not make the early Indiana Jones action figures. They were really similar. I have some of them, and they posed the same way. They're like one step better than like Star Wars figures, just because Star Wars figures, the arms and the legs never bent. The hips just pivoted, and the arms, pivoted at the shoulders. But like the Zorro figure, the other Gabriel figures, and then I guess Kenner made the Indiana Jones figures. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but maybe you care. But they were actually like more posable, like the knees bent and stuff, and the legs kind of bent outward, like the legs pivoted outward, because I think the Indiana Jones figure too, there was a horse in that line that the figure could ride. But very similar. I don't know if maybe Kenner had purchased Gabriel, because the designs were very close. Okay, so this is where, after looking at this drawing for days, I was like, man, I really didn't like the way the shirt came out. So I decided to add these frills, and I think I'm gonna blacken the collar a little bit more. I didn't like the way I had cross-hatched the shirt, so I decided to just add some downward strokes. I don't know if it really mattered that much, but when you have a piece of artwork sitting there and you don't just make up in your mind that it's done, like me, I'll just keep working on it and working on it and working on it. And there's a quote I heard. I think it was a painter named Joe Paquette said that I don't know if this is original to him, but sometimes you just got to stop polishing the apple. And that quote really struck a chord, because I will over polish the apple most of the time. Sometimes you just got to decide that something's done and move on. And maybe you draw it again later on. Maybe this isn't the last time I draw Zorro, Maybe it will be, but who knows? I can't say I've ever the last time I probably drew Zorro was when I was like 6 years old, probably. 6 or 8 years old. That's all I used to do is draw. I've got, a box of old drawings of just like me drawing G.I. Joe characters or whatever cartoon I was into. I recently read I think it's the Gladwell book, Outliers, and in there he talks about the 10,000 hours it takes to get good at something, and I'd subscribe to that. I think anybody can become pretty skilled at drawing and art. Don't discount anybody, but it may take that 10,000 hours to get there. For some people, maybe not as long, but with some artists, it starts early, like they were when they were kids. They drew and drew and drew, and so there you have your buildup of your 10,000 hours to develop that skill. And if you're starting off drawing in your 30s or 40s or 20s, and you don't have those 10,000 hours, you just have to be patient. It'll come if you work hard at it. The harder you work at it too. I mean, it goes with anything. If you work hard at it, your skill's going to develop faster. But you also want to practice the right things. mentioned earlier, you don't want to do the wrong things over and over and over again. So you don't want to draw, you know, when you keep drawing an ear or the nose or the, you know, any anatomy wrong, and just keep doing it. I mean, sometimes that goes hand in hand with somebody's style, but that's like a chosen intention. You know, that hopefully any artist that's known for distorting the figure knows how to draw it the correct way. All right, here's starting on the last illustration in this video. This is the third character to share the spot of number 4 on my list. I will let you know there were no other ties in this series, so the next video will just be one drawing, and the video after that and the video after that. So number 3, number 2, and number 1 will be no tie for that spot. I just couldn't help myself because there are 3 popular characters that have you know had their moments of being more popular than others throughout the last, I guess we're looking at 100 years almost. So they've had their times of, you know, at one time I'm sure this guy was equal to or maybe even more popular than, say, Robin or Zorro. And I don't know how many, you know, he was with me. I had, like I said, I had the play set that came with the pearl-handled pistols and the black mask and the red handkerchief and the holsters. And one of my cousins lost one of the pistols in the woods one day, so I only have one of them left. And we looked and looked and looked for it and never found it. I think that was long after you could replace it. But I don't know if you're trying to guess right now who I'm drawing. I think pretty soon you're going to get a good hint as I flesh out this hat. Hopefully everybody watching this video has heard of this character. And his theme song that will resonate throughout history. I still catch reruns on, I don't know what channel, if it's what channel the old rerun black and white reruns are, but they're so good. Like the early actor that played him in the series, his name was Clayton Moore, and man, I think they just made a perfect choice with the casting in that series. I don't know anything about Clayton Moore personally, but he just played this character to just in my mind. There's no other Lone Ranger. Now well, there you go. I just gave it away. The Lone Ranger. I realize that there's possibly people that have watched this video that just fast forwarded it to see what the 3 characters were, or to see the final. I'll do that. I'm not lying. I will do that if I see a video and I want to be able to tell whether it's worth watching. I will fast forward to the end to see how the artwork turns out. And if I don't like how the artwork turns out, I probably won't watch the whole video. But if I do, I will watch the video. That's the nice thing about being able to quickly fast forward on YouTube. So I did not draw my Lone Ranger here to look like Clayton Moore, the actor that had played him in the black and white TV series. Honestly, I'm going to be completely honest. I did struggle with not in this illustration. I mean, this one went pretty quickly, but I did draw two other versions of this that I absolutely hated, and maybe more. I think I tore a couple up, but that were unsavable. So this was not, like I said, just being completely honest, this was not my first attempt. I was trying to figure out how to, what facial features I wanted to include. And man, I really did struggle with getting it right. You know who at the time I was thinking of would make a really good, I think, Lone Ranger would be like Chris Pine. I know they did just re-release a Lone Ranger movie with Johnny Depp. It's probably 10 years ago now. But I actually never saw the movie. But if they ever were going to do it again, I think Chris Pine, he looks a lot like, he has some similar facial features to Clayton Moore there, that originally played him in the black and white series. For this drawing, I did really try to keep it pretty simple. There's an artist that I follow on Instagram. I think he's from Spain. I can't remember his name, but he draws a graphic novel called The Undertaker, and it's a Western. Man, he draws some great illustrations. Nothing overly complicated, but everything works. I mean, it's just a really gifted illustrator. Knows how to use line well, and his paintings look fantastic too. So if you look up The Undertaker graphic novel, like I said, I think it's a Spanish. I've tried to find it here in the States, and I'd really like to pick one up. I think it was available in digital on Amazon. I'm not going to pull my phone out and look it up, but yeah, check that series out, or check that artist out. So this was I was trying to decide how to arrange what shape to make the eye cutouts. I don't think a lot of times with a mask like this, like Robin, there have been times where you can see his eyeballs, and then there's times where his eyes are just whited out. I don't think the Lone Ranger or Zorro have ever been portrayed with the eyes whited out that I can recall. Maybe there was some version but I don't think that really works. Like again, just like Zorro, the Lone Ranger wasn't a superhero. He was a hero in fictional literature, but did not have any superpowers. If you've never seen the black and white TV series, I highly recommend you check it out. I think everything on that show was so well done. That, Silver the horse, it's a gorgeous horse, and you couldn't have picked a better actor to play the Lone Ranger. Apparently, I think the Lone Ranger was created for a radio series, maybe, to start. You might hear me typing away as I look this up. I am not speaking while I'm drawing here, just to let you. I think you figured, maybe if you're watching this, you figured that out. I started to try to do that in my earlier videos, and I threw that out the window, which makes more work because then I have to narrate things after, and it takes. To be honest, I don't really enjoy it. I want to draw. I don't enjoy narrating the videos, but some of my videos have been so long to just have music all the time. I mean, maybe if you're watching this video, you'd rather I not speak, but I decided at some point to just narrate the videos later on, and it was easier to edit too. I'm not a gifted orator, not a gifted speaker, so sometimes I have to go back and re-record, something I've said because I didn't speak clearly. I'm often narrating this in the morning, after I've just gotten up, or at night. I think I do a little better at night. In the morning, I've sometimes got a little nasal thing going, or now it's getting colder in my area, so you got that never-ending post-nasal drip. Not to gross anybody out. But yeah, I do not narrate these as I draw. Maybe someday I'll do a live stream if I get enough followers. Right now, the number of people watching my videos is very minimal. But I have enjoyed creating them. And it's one way to get your artwork out there. Okay, so yeah, the Lone Ranger originally but was originally in a radio series in 1933. So he's getting pretty close to becoming public domain. I might be wrong, but I think is it 100 years? In whatever version, I mean, I don't know what that would look like, because being a radio character, unless if they sold records or albums, there would have been no visual. I don't know how they would have got, they probably advertised that stuff in the newspapers and stuff. I'd have to look up and see if I can find an early ad for the Lone Ranger radio show. But yes, if you're listening to this, there was a time where there was no television, there was no cell phones, no YouTube, and people had to gather around the radio at night for their entertainment. They couldn't even watch moving pictures at home. They had to listen to the radio. That was well before my time, but I have listened to several radio shows like The Shadow. Super entertaining. So like I said, this drawing did go fairly smooth after a couple practice runs. And I didn't get into crazy detail and facial rendering. I did draw one where I just over-rendered the face, and he looked like he was 80 years old, so I decided not to do that. This is kind of more of a middle-aged Lone Ranger. He's got some weathered looks, and I did not plan this, but he does kind of look like what's his name that played the sheriff on the show Gunsmoke. He kind of looks like him. Desi Arnaz. Is it Desi Arnaz? No, not Desi Arnaz. His name was Matt Dillon, I think. Yeah, Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke. It was James Arness. James Arness. Like I said, I did not reference a photo of James Arness, but it does look a lot like James Arness. Maybe that was just from watching too many Gunsmoke shows. I just hashed out this figure that kind of looked like it. That was not my plan. So the Lone Ranger wore a white hat. Very noble character. Wore a white hat. Wore a light blue suit, which nowadays you might think would look kind of cheesy, but it worked in the TV show. Pants and all. And I do have the Gabriel Lone Ranger figures. I have the Lone Ranger, Tonto. They were based on a movie that came out back in the early 80s or late 70s, and I have the villain. I'm not sure what his name. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I'm not sure who the villain was, but I have him. I have his horse. I think a couple of the horses, the ears were very frail on those and were prone to break off. And unfortunately, I don't think I have any of the revolvers that came with the characters. But I probably played with those action figures. Like I said, they were not as dear to me as my Star Wars figures, but I think better. The design was better. You know, the knees bent. I don't know at some point if they ever did come out with like the earliest versions of the Kenner Star Wars figures, if they ever had bendable knees. I don't remember any of mine having bendable knees, and maybe they just kept that as a tradition, or maybe there was some kind of copyright issue where they couldn't do that. But I remember when I was a kid, I always hoped that they'd come out with a Star Wars figure that was more posable. Like you couldn't get more posable than the G.I. Joe figures. Alright, we're coming down to the end of this video. This is the longest video in the series. If you like this video, please select the like button, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos. I'm on Instagram at ink.warfare, and I have a website, inkwarfare.com. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you.